This is my ultimate Jean Paul Gaultier tier list and overall buying guide. Over the past year, I've spent almost $2,000 on Jean Paul Gaultier fragrances alone. I own 7 of the most popular JPGs and over 11 bottles. So if there's anyone that is qualified to know what they're talking about when it comes to these fragrances, it's your boy FB Fragrances. These Jean Paul Gaultier colognes will be ranked into a tier list based on 4 key criteria. The first is smell. Does it smell good? Does it smell bad? The second is performance. Does it project well off my skin? Does it last a long time? Third is overall value for money. Does it punch above or below its price point? And finally, the most important criteria is the FB Fragrances connection. I don't really know what that means, but basically it just means, do I wear it more than the other ones? Do I see myself buying a backup bottle? And that's all I can really think of. That one's more of a personal feeling that you guys just gotta learn to pick up on, you know? Starting off with a fragrance that is old but gold, the original Jean Paul Gaultier Le Male. I actually do think this came out in the 1990s. I think 1993 to be exact. So as you may guess by how old this fragrance is, it also does smell very old. It's an old-fashioned kind of manly barbershop type of fragrance. It's really fresh off the top with the bergamot, but the dose of lavender that you get in this, to me, is borderline unbearable. I don't mind some lavender in my fragrances, but the amount of lavender in this is absolutely crazy. To me, this actually just smells like a lavender farm with a nice bit of vanilla. The opening to me is quite good, actually. I would give the opening an 8 out of 10. It is very refreshing on a hot summer's day, but the dry down is just too barbershop and soapy for my liking. For that reason, I'm going to be putting this one in this C tier. I respect it's a classic. It was the start of a very, very timeless, famous, well-known Jean Paul Gaultier line and brand. But as an individual fragrance, there's just so much better out on the market right now. I gather this is the most affordable Jean Paul Gaultier, and for that, I suppose if you really want a JPG, but even then you can just get a clone. So it's like, I don't really see the point of still buying this in 2024, to be brutally honest. Although it is a bit more expensive, an example of a fragrance that kind of has a similar scent profile to the original Le Male, but it just smells infinitely times better, is Amouage Reflection. You still kind of get that soapy floral lavender vibe from it. It just smells creamier, more modern, and sexier. If you're really stuck on the Le Male DNA and you love it a lot, just save up and buy this. Up next, onto the most iconic Jean Paul Gaultier, I would say, and that is Ultra Male. Interestingly, Ultra Male I found is near impossible to find in retail stores, but online, it's everywhere. I don't know why. You would think it was discontinued if you walked into a store and looked for this fragrance, but online, it's literally easy as to find. It's quite cheap, actually. On discounters, it's like 80 bucks. To me, it just smells like a clubbing beast, as Jeremy Fragrance would say. It's very unrefined. If you want a classy, elegant, sophisticated fragrance, this is not the one you go for. But that's not necessarily me calling it bad. I'm just saying when you're looking for a fragrance like this, you have a very specific goal in mind. And that goal is to probably attract women, to get the ladies at the clubs, and to just smell damn sexy. Then this fragrance is for you. Any of those three, this fragrance ticks all of those boxes. But again, if you like to dress really fancy, you like going on fancy dinner dates, events, that type of stuff, I would say there are a lot better options than this fragrance. In terms of what it smells like, you get a kind of lavender vanilla vibe similar to the original Le Male. It's just toned down a lot more. It smells a lot more modern. It's very, very sweet. It has a bubblegum, sweet, pear, fruity type of vibe to it. I hardly reach for this one anymore. So in terms of the FB Fragrances connection with this fragrance, it is all the way down here. I probably wear the original Le Male more than this fragrance. So for that reason alone, I've got to put it in the B tier. I think it smells better than Le Male. I just hardly reach for it anymore. It's also worth noting that unfortunately for this fragrance here, there are so many clones available of this on the market. For example, Afnan 9pm is the one that comes to my mind. It honestly smells about 90% similar with similar performance for just 30 bucks. Like, unless you really want to own the Jean Paul Gaultier bottle, just get Afnan 9pm instead. I'm sorry, buddy. On to a more summery, fresh type of offering from Jean Paul Gaultier. That is Beau Male Parfum. Let me just get this out of the way. There's a reason I own this over Beau EDT. I think if you're deciding between Beau EDT and the Parfum, buy the Parfum every single time. This is just a lot more complex. It has way more depth to it. The coconut is very, very strong, but I wouldn't say it's too overpowering. That vanilla-y tonka bean creamy vibe from this fragrance is absolutely gorgeous. And actually, I do think it is my favorite Jean Paul Gaultier bottle, so the presentation is on point as well. For a more summery, fresh type of fragrance, the performance is not to be messed with as well. There is no chance you will buy this fragrance and then spray it on and be disappointed with how it projects and how long it lasts. Projection is very, very strong, definitely at least for the first 3 hours. And then longevity, I would say, is quite close to 10 hours. And the dry down as well, the coconut stays around. It honestly is just pina colada beautifulness in a bottle. If I was going away to a place like Fiji for a relaxing beach holiday, party at night type of thing, this is the fragrance I would choose every single time. And that's just not out of any Jean Paul Gaultier. That is out of any fragrance in my entire collection. But what tier does Le Beau Parfum go into? I'm going to have to say the A tier. I think it's in the high A tier. You could argue S, you could argue B if maybe you're not a big fan of those creamy coconut vibes, but I am A tier for Le Beau Parfum. I know this isn't a clone video, but I can't help myself. If you're on more of a budget and you want that pina colada smell, here is one that I found. Tribal Intense by Granuar. As you can probably see by the bottle, it is a clone of Le Beau Parfum, and honestly, for 30 bucks, really good job. I've also heard that Cuddlage Island is another fantastic clone. I'm just putting that out there because I know there's a lot of younger guys watching that are on more of a budget. Moving on to this big boy right here, this 200 ml bottle of Le Male Parfum. I'm going to get out of the way and just say it. This is the best Jean Paul Gaultier fragrance ever made, in my honest opinion. It's been my favorite for a long time now, and my reasoning for this is I freaking love the note of iris. I love how iris smells. It's a floral, and it is done amazingly well in this fragrance. I've noticed a lot of iris fragrances that I try are often very kind of like, I don't exactly know how to describe it. A lot of the time, they're just very like sophisticated smelling, not very sweet, definitely more kind of aimed at older people. But this fragrance here, and also something like Valentino One More Intense, I love how they take a mature smelling note like iris, add a bunch of sweetness and youthfulness with vanilla, and then kind of mix those two opposing things together. It is done so well in this fragrance. I think also this would work for pretty much any age group up until around the age of like 40. So youngings and oldings can rough this fragrance. I love it so much. I wear it literally for whenever it gets cold outside. I don't think it works well in the summer. It's just too sweet and cloying for that. But anytime I feel a slight cool breeze, this is the fragrance that I often reach for. Performance as well is kind of right in the middle of Jean Paul Gaultier fragrances. It's not as strong as something like Ultramel, but it's also not as weak and not as long lasting as something like the original Le Male. I would say it lasts around 9 to 10 hours with soft to moderate projection. It stays around, it lingers in the air, it will get compliments. Don't worry about it being a skin scent or anything like that, but it also definitely isn't anything close to being a beast mode fragrance. If you guys haven't guessed already, this is going into the S tier, the best JPG ever made in my opinion. Not blind by safe though, unless you know you like sweet iris fragrances. Unfortunately, I'm still yet to find a half-decent clone of Le Male Parfum. Let me know in the comments if any of them even exist out there. Up next, we have got the most controversial JPG to me and my brain, and that is Le Male Elixir. The bottle, spectacular looking. The smell? I don't know. I still don't really know if I like this fragrance. I know for a fact now that I'm not a fan of the opening, the honey, the cloyingness. It is way too sweet and in your face. But the dry down, when that vanilla really punches in, I am starting to come around to the dry down. I do think this dry down, in terms of mass appeal, intoxication factor, the scent trail, how many compliments it gets, it is the best Jean Paul Gaultier fragrance in those regards. In terms of like, if you're walking past a group of people with a JPG on and you want the most positive reactions and attention, this is the fragrance that you should go for, but I don't think it is the best JPG. This is kind of a personal thing, but like I said, I just find it too sweet and in your face, particularly in that opening. I think it's the combination of lavender, honey, and vanilla. It works in something like Xerjoff Naxos, but in this fragrance, it just doesn't, and I don't know why. Maybe it'll keep growing on me and eventually become my favorite. Probably not, but who knows. One thing I can't fault about this cologne is the performance. Definitely, at least for me, the strongest JPG. 11-12 hours longevity with pretty much as strong projection as you would ever want or need from a fragrance. This is one of my best friend's signature scent, and honestly, every time he wears it and he walks past me, I just think for a second, like, damn, that smells good. Like, what is he wearing? And then I'm like, damn, like, I just catch myself going, that's Le Male Elixir. I thought you didn't like that fragrance, Finn. And then I go through this spiral of like, what am I actually doing in my life? Is my nose lying to me? Is my whole life a lie? And I just go, nah, I just don't like it on myself. But on other people, it smells great. It pulls compliments. I'm going to try not be biased here and my dislike for how sweet this is. And I'm actually going to put it in the A tier. 2 Jean Paul Gaultier fragrances left, and this next one is probably the least talked about on this list. That is Le Male Lover. I also think this is the newest Jean Paul Gaultier release. Why do I think it didn't quite take off like maybe they anticipated? First, the branding, the marketing is obviously going to be very controversial, and it's only going to resonate with people on a certain side of your audience. Not going to get too into that. But I actually personally think the bottle, at least, is really, really cool. It's hard to see the detailing on camera, but it looks great up close. How does it smell? I kind of struggle describing how this smells. To me, it definitely has similarities to the original Le Male, probably more similarities than any of the other JPGs that came out after it. In my personal opinion, I think they went too close to the original scent DNA, and that is a big reason why it just never really took off in popularity. People want different, people want innovation, uniqueness. This just doesn't really have any of those. I would say it takes what the Le Male has, takes down the lavender, increases the ambery, vanilla-y kind of like powderiness of the fragrance, which is nice, but it doesn't really add anything else unique to it. Like Ultramale added that pan note, that fruitiness. Le Male Elixir had that kind of honeyed vibe to it. Le Male Parfum has the iris. This just doesn't really have anything. On top of that, the performance is one of the worst from Jean Paul Gaultier. I actually get worse performance on this than the original Le Male, so around 6 to 7 hours longevity with soft projection. I think a combination of everything I've talked about there is the reason why this isn't that popular, and also the reason why I just don't like it that much. I'm going to be putting this one in the C tier. The last JPG fragrance on this tier list is one that has actually grown on me the most out of all of these. It went from one that when I first smelled it, I was like, like Beau Parfum kind of is better than this, to like, this thing is so unbelievably good. Like, it's challenging Le Male Parfum's top spot. The fragrance I'm talking about is Paradise Gardens. I've just been loving my herbal, more minty green fragrances more and more recently, and this fragrance just hits the spot for me because it has a more minty green element to it compared to something like Beau Parfum, but it takes down that coconut note, which I really like, and like I said, just that mintiness, that the kind of like almost spiciness to it is so refreshing and uplifting. I truly love this fragrance. In terms of where it goes on the tier list, I'm going to be slotting this one in the S tier next to Le Male Parfum. I think if I could only choose one JPG for life, I still would take Le Male Parfum, but this stuff is a really, really, really close second. Also, the bottle design is so unbelievably cool. That is going to wrap it up on ranking every single JPG I own into my very own tier list. Remember, this is just my personal opinion, but my opinion is always right. No, I'm just kidding. If you like this video at any point and want to see more of my content, please like and subscribe so you get to see more of my beautiful face every single day. I'll catch you guys in the next video, which may be another tier list video. Peace.